In the city of Cupertino, all actions of local government fall under the authority of the City Council. 5 candidates are in the running for 3 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race toward Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those 5 candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with tonight's featured City Council candidate, Steve Haze. Tonight's segment was recorded on Friday, September 26th.
Hi, I'm Pam Marino of the Cupertino Courier newspaper. I'm here with Michael Cronk of the San Jose Mercury News. And today we're going to be interviewing Steve Haze, one of the 5 candidates running for a seat on the Cupertino City Council. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Pam.
The Diocese project, the housing project out by Rancho San Antonio Park, is not going to be voted on by the City Council, most likely, until after the election. If you're elected, how would you vote on that housing project?
Well, after 8 years and a lot of discussion by citizens and by the Planning Commission, my feeling is once it comes to the council that we need to take in consideration what the citizens have expressed, the Planning Commission's recommendations, and enact them. My understanding is that the development proposal by the O'Brien Group complies not only with the intent of the general plan, but fully with the spirit as well. And it's time for us to move forward. With 2/3 of the land being preserved as public open space to be transferred to the county, I think they're anxious to receive that land. It's very unusual within a service boundary area to have open space provided to the community in such close proximity. The historical value of the land is very important. Environmentally sensitive areas being preserved, and the clustering of the houses, the providence of 18 on-site BMR units, all these are very positive. So I think when it comes to the council, there may be some fine-tuning or tweaking, but I think we need to take a look back of 8 years of involvement and move forward. However, there's still a concern out there as far as, will this be like the forum? And so what I'm proposing is that a citizens oversight committee be established where those who have been involved in the past, such as Kendall Blau of the Oaks organization, Donna Austin, who was very concerned about environmental impact to the land, and is still on the Planning Commission, as well as a number of organizations that I may be involved with, or others such as the Audubon Society, the Greenbelt Alliance. I think this oversight committee should be established so that we can continue to reassure the public, especially those who go into Rancho San Antonio and see that first bulldozer out there, that this is not going to be a parking lot, and that they will have an opportunity to participate and contact that oversight committee and have ongoing review.
Steve, you have an extensive record in terms of involvement in issues in Cupertino and elsewhere, environmental and otherwise, and you have run for the council before. In light of the amount of time you put in and the success you've had in some of these areas, such as the diocese back then, why are you seeking to get on the council? In other words, what do you think you can accomplish as a councilman?
Well, my belief is that I can represent those various organizations. I've tried as best to my ability to be inclusive and as broad-based as possible. I work at a homeless shelter, provide meals through our church. I'm involved in diversity and how to bring together diverse segments of our community. I sat on the Government Relations Committee and Business Advocacy Committee for the Chamber. I've participated in regional initiatives such as Joint Venture Silicon Valley, the Housing Action Coalition for the Santa Clara Valley Manufacturing Group, and I preside over 2 organizations that are involved in delivery. when it comes to quality of life.
So you're saying you would have a more, in your view, a more visible voice or stronger voice if you were on the council in some of these, to present your positions on some of these?
Yes, essentially what it means is that I'll be able to represent the citizens as well as these organizations to allow us to invest in the future of our community in a very positive way.
You mentioned about diversity, and I was wondering what you feel the role of city government should be in terms of bringing the diverse cultures together here in Cupertino.
Well, to me, that's one of the paramount questions because, again, I'll just use as an example my church, but there's many other examples. That's a community within a community, and we're talking about that today. We have what's called the Holy Light congregation, and it's made up of the Asian community. And some talk about the melting pot, as all of us are really from families of immigrants. And with the most recent wave of immigration, I think it's really to our benefit if we try to be as inclusive as possible. But at the same time try to acknowledge or understand our cultural diversity. But that's the enrichment. I think of the fact that there was only one time in the year when we said Happy New Year's. Now it's very conceivable with all of the cultural influence that we can celebrate New Year's 4 times, maybe 5 times a year. So there's a lot of positive aspects to cultural diversity. And to me, it's very enriching in that respect. So I believe that the council should be looking at that to provide leadership through involvement, and I believe I'm demonstrating that at this time.
Let's talk about Valco. There's been a lot of discussion of that recently. It is the major center and has fallen on somewhat hard times. Do you have any ideas on revitalizing that center in that area?
You know, the unfortunate aspect about Valco is it's a mall, okay? And unfortunately, it's between 2 other major mall areas, Valley Fair and Stanford Shopping Center. And there was a study done, it was essentially called the Malling of America. And what we have is too much supply and not enough demand. One of the most ironic statistics associated with Valco is only 10% of Cupertino residents even use the mall. So most of the attraction in the past has been from the outside. Fortunately, Valco is close to a major transportation route, and so you say to yourself, why isn't there more shoppers, more foot traffic? And it could be the products. It could be the fact that there isn't an anchor, or there isn't enough entertainment opportunities, or the types of products, retailing opportunities are not the right ones. There's a lot of competition, and maybe what we need to do is to take a step back. We understand the free enterprise system, and we always say don't get government involved, but it's interesting that when these situations occur where there's 30% vacancy and only 10% of the community supports Valco, then they say, what can we do? What can government do? And I feel the first thing we can do is talk about the issue. And that I am receptive to. But I think we need to go slowly, we need to go cautiously. It will take a partnership between the city and the chamber and the tenants and the citizens. So no one will know what the outcome is because of competition, but we definitely do need to address it forthrightly.
Do you favor a redevelopment district for Valco?
Well, in the case of redevelopment district, there's always been one on the books. It's never been put into effect. That is a possibility as far as redevelopment. It's my understanding that some of the more recent court cases have made it where it's much more feasible because the dollars would remain with the city rather than go to the county. And so in that respect, I believe it has some feasibility or possibilities, and it would structure how we would proceed. So I'm very receptive to that, but as we all know, there's always other ideas and different ways of approaching it. So we have to be receptive that there may be some other alternatives as well.
The budget. The city has a large reserve that's going to be increased with the new leasing of the water utility. Do you have any ideas as to what the proper reserve level of the city should be, or what monies from that reserve should be used and for what projects, community projects in the area?
Cupertino is probably one of the most fortunate communities, not just here in Santa Clara Valley, but in the state. I mean, with a healthy reserve that's going to be topping 31 million and a budget that's well under that, that means we have essentially 1 year's plus reserves. And that is, if we didn't want to spend or tax, or shall we say allow for any income, we could operate without any income coming into the city's coffers. My feeling is about the water district issue. I happen to be from the Monte Vista area that was served. I understand how a number of individuals felt about that. I would like to see some of that money plowed back into that neighborhood. I also would like to see that money used for library expansion, including hours of operation and new computers and technologies and books and magazines. I'd like to see the senior center expanded. And I would like to see us look at ways to use some of that money, as we were talking about earlier, about Valco or the Stevens Creek Master Plan, okay, the Stevens Creek Boulevard Master Plan. Already we're seeing trees being planted. Maybe the next thing is some of those monies be used for benches, because you have trees, but you don't have pedestrians. And the master plan talks about storefronts, it talks about outdoor seating at restaurants like Fontana's, you know, things like that. So there's great opportunity, and we're one of the few communities that's fortunate that we have this kind of problem, shall we say. It's a great opportunity.
There have been some complaints from residents recently about graffiti. They're upset about how it tends to proliferate at times. What do you feel the city can do to better combat graffiti?
Well, the city has on the books a ordinance that talks about eradication and prevention. And there's been numerous attempts in the past to try to minimize graffiti. You have to attack it as quickly as possible. But there's also on it what I call a double jeopardy aspect to it. For the poor homeowner who's gone for 10 days and on vacation comes back, they get a bill from the city for $100 saying, we've cleaned up the graffiti on your house or your fence. And so not only were they the victim from the tagger, but they've essentially, and this is why I say double jeopardy, yet fined essentially for not cleaning up the graffiti. My feeling is get the taggers, it doesn't matter if it was the specific taggers, get them out there, have them perform the cleanup. If they're out there doing 10 times more of cleanup than what they did, I think the message will go back to them. So it, to me, is have a position of zero tolerance. We talk about that in the schools as well, as far as zero tolerance, as it relates to gangs and weapons and so forth. To me, graffiti falls in that same area. It obviously is not weapons, but to do this to somebody, victimize them, I feel is wrong.
And the city should pay for cleanup? Is that what you're saying?
The city does, but then they bill the homeowner. And I think for a resident, okay, that we should not look at $100 because it sends out the wrong message. Not only did they get tagged, but, oh, by the way, here's a bill. I don't think anybody wants tagging on their house or fences.
I want to go back to growth, because that is always a central issue of concern in Cupertino. And you've certainly been involved in that in terms of the general plan, the tier growth. If you're on the council, what direction, generally speaking, would you like to go? Would you, since essentially the city's essentially built out, would you like to see more retail growth, business growth, residential growth, or would you favor some kind of slowdown or moratorium at this point? What exactly is your basic position on the overall issue of growth?
Well, I look at it as responsible and balanced growth, and that's a balancing act. And it means that we have to look at what is affecting our community. Do we have a jobs to housing imbalance? The answer is yes. Is it regional? The answer is yes. What is our fair share? And you can start debating that. And what I find really unfortunate is that somebody wants things to be black and white, and life is not that easy. There's a lot of gray. So when you say growth or no growth, you have to look at where is the community at this time. Are we in a recessionary situation? Are people losing their jobs? Are businesses leaving? What's the retailing climate, like Valco? I mean, there's so many considerations. And so, one of the responsibilities of the city and as a member of the council is always keep your eye on the pulse of the economy. So I look at the tier program, I say there was an imbalance. My feeling was you go out there and you see, can we bring it into balance? If you cannot mitigate for the traffic, if you can't mitigate for the housing, then you make adjustments. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If somebody was on the Titanic doing that, it would have been a different story. But unfortunately, when you all of a sudden attempt to veer back onto the right course, okay, and you do it at the last moment, that's where the problems occur. My feeling is that just like in the 1990 General Plan Review, that you have a Citizen Goals Committee, you start looking at really what's going to be the blueprint for the 21st century, the next General Plan Review. You have business, you have labor, and you have citizens involved, and you make it where they all have ownership of that vision. And then it becomes brick and mortar to build towards that vision. And you may have to make adjustments along the way. There is nothing wrong with reviewing your general plan to see if it's still the right plan. Responsible business people like myself and others understand that. You put a 5-year plan out there, you're reviewing it even on a quarterly basis, but you don't also knee-jerk on a quarterly basis. So you just try to see how you're deviating. If sales tax revenues, that's a barometer or gauge, are starting to decline, you start to ask what's causing that, what are the influences? I mean, leadership is situational and it's responsible. And that is how I'm going to approach it at this time.
Kaiser Cement has said that they're not going to pursue a permit for right now to do tire burning. However, there are lobbyists in Sacramento who are trying to get tire burning perhaps mandated throughout the state. What is your position on tire burning? And if Kaiser came back and said, we want to pursue a permit, what would you do?
Okay, as far as, just getting to the point as far as the permit, that won't come to the council. However, as council members representing the citizens, we need to be involved. I would like to say there's a higher use for tire-derived fuel, okay, TDF, and that is where the rubber meets the road, as an example. One of the big problems as we've become more urbanized, where Highway 85 now is being used, is noise. There's adjoining neighborhoods where they're talking about noise and how to mitigate. Well, one of the most interesting things is you can take this tire-derived fuel component and mix it in with asphalt and reduce the amount of noise. So essentially, tires is a reusable resource, and it's not something that you want to expend unnecessarily. So philosophically, I can see a much higher use for tires, but then there's the science, and there's the Bay Area Air Quality Resource Board, and there's economics. And I think, that's why it's very fortunate that we have citizen involvement like the Air Watch group. And it's good to see that Kaiser did put together a committee. And so you have concerned individuals that are saying, well, what about the incidence of cancer? What will happen? How are they collecting that data? Is that data the right data? You know, so that the science of it is validated and people feel assured. But when you hit certain thresholds like what had been determined by using the fuel, then you have to say, is it the TDF? Is it the amount of oxygen? What is causing that? For them to go to Sacramento and try to come back into town, they're still going to be confronted with the same questions, the same level of involvement by citizens, and we'll have to work through that.
As you're well aware, the last couple of elections have been very contentious, and this election seems to be, and I don't know if that's your view, somewhat more lower key. What is the, and there was questions about consultants and high spending. Mm-hmm. Basically, what level of spending are you contemplating for this election, and are you receiving any kind of funding from sources outside the city? And if so, what kind?
Well, you know, I'm really happy that Proposition 208 passed. I also am, I have issues with some of the aspects of 208 and our local implementation, okay? A lot of bookkeeping involved. To date, I've only spent $77.50. I put in $1,000 of my own money. I'm spending most of my time trying to get my message out. Not only get my message out, but deliver on it. And I believe my record stands for itself. This whole question about consultants, okay, everybody can put a spin on it. It's interesting that when that question is brought up, that those who have even used the same consultants all of a sudden are quiet. And pretty soon they say, well, Michael, it's just your consultant. Fact of the matter is, you say no. You go to that same gas station, you get same kind of service. Chamber used the same consultants that I was told were wrong consultants for me to use. They spent $30,000 to try to invigorate the retailing environment by Shop Cupertino. And I find that very interesting that I'm, say, associated or refer to somebody that I feel would be good for business, and I'm told that they're bad for Cupertino. And then you have to ask yourself, why did the chamber go out there first and say this is the right person to try to invigorate our local economy? So why wrap ourselves around the axle, put a spin on it any way we want as it relates to consultants? You wouldn't go into court without good representation. The only reason why I had a consultant is because the last time is because somebody had one come in from Sacramento, which to me is carpetbagging. How would they know what the issues are that are pertinent to us here in Cupertino? My consultant knows about business, was retained by the chamber, and by a number of candidates, even in the last election. And I didn't go finger pointing and saying, look at what you guys are doing, and things like that. So my feeling is, if I don't have to use consultants because the other guy isn't, I feel that's great. And that's why I like 208. That's why I like some aspects of the ordinance as it was implemented here.
Okay. There have been residents in Cupertino, longtime residents, who've been upset because of what they call monster houses. The houses that take up the entire lot and tower over all the other single-story homes in the neighborhood that may be 40 or 50 years old. Do you think something needs to be done about these houses, and if so, what?
Well, I've always felt something needs to be done about it. My record, if you go through my portfolio, you'll see that. I'm also on the board of the Cupertino Historical Society, and we're dealing with preservation. I'm also a neighborhood preservationist. I've been involved in zoning and maintenance of zoning as far as its integrity, and zero lot or zero setback housing, you know, what's called the monster houses. You know, I'm philosophically opposed to it, but it's going to take not just me, it takes 3 votes. It takes people coming into City Hall and saying enough is enough. I don't know why there isn't as much of an uproar in that respect. If there is, and 3 members of the council will do that, and I'll be happy to participate, to reduce the size of houses on a lot. Okay, so if it's a 10,000 square foot home, and today it's 4,500 square feet, and the setbacks are very minimal, then let's do something to reduce it to, say, 3,500 square feet, and stand by it. But it takes more than just 1 vote to do that. It takes 3 votes, and it takes citizen participation.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. Thanks for joining us today, and good luck on your campaign.
All right, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Michael.
Election Tuesday is November 4th. Please vote for the 3 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for more special City Council election programming.